Jake wiped the grease from his hands as the old sedan coughed into his driveway, steam hissing from under the hood. The woman who stepped out looked exhausted, eyes heavy, clothes wrinkled, wallet empty. Jake had barely made rent that month, but something about her hesitation tugged at him. She whispered, "I have no money." He glanced at his rusted tools, then at her worn-out shoes. "I didn't ask for any," he replied. What he didn't know was that this simple act of kindness was about to set off a chain reaction that would change everything. Jake Carson had seen better days. His small-town repair shop, once buzzing with engines and laughter, now echoed only with silence and the occasional rattle of tools. The walls were lined with unpaid bills. A faded "Help" wanted sign clung stubbornly to the window. Still, Jake opened his doors every morning with the same quiet hope. That afternoon, as the sun dipped behind the pines, the battered sedan sputtered onto his gravel lot. Smoke poured from the hood. Jake wiped his hands and stepped outside. The mic. Driver's door creaked open, and a young woman stepped out, late 20s maybe, wearing a faded jacket and jeans that had seen better years. She looked around nervously, clutching her phone like a lifeline. "Overheating?" Jake asked. She hesitated. "I think so. I'm sorry. I didn't know where else to go." Jake lifted the hood and let out a low whistle. "Radiator's shot. You're lucky it made it this far." She bit her lip. "Can you fix it?" He looked up. Her eyes said everything before her words did. "I don't have the money right now. I was hoping maybe you could let me pay later." Jake stared for a moment. He had mouths to feed, overdue invoices, a bank losing patience. But he also had a conscience that refused to rust. He exhaled. "Leave it here. I'll take care of it." She blinked. "Wait, really?" He gave a lopsided smile. "I've been where you are." Tears welled in her eyes, but she wiped them quickly. "Thank you. I promise I'll pay you back." Jake didn't expect to see her again. People made promises like that all the time, but he fixed the car anyway, staying late into the night. He even threw in a used battery he had lying around. By morning, the car was ready. She returned, still stunned by his generosity. "Why did you help me?" she asked softly. Jake shrugged. "You looked like you needed someone to believe in you. That's enough." She smiled, said her name was Emily, and drove away. Jake stood on the porch watching her taillights fade, figuring that was the end of it. He was wrong. By sunset, his lot was surrounded by vehicles that did not belong in a town like his. Jake was elbow-deep in an oil change when he heard the first engine. Smooth, quiet, unmistakably expensive. He stepped outside, expecting a lost tourist. What he saw made his heart skip. A black Rolls-Royce Phantom, a silver Bentley, 2 Mercedes, G-Wagons, a Tesla Model X, and more high-end vehicles lining the gravel like a luxury parade. Jake blinked. Luxury cars were rarer than snow in July in his town. His heart pounded as well-dressed drivers stepped out, surveying the place. One man, in a crisp suit and sunglasses, approached. "Jake Carson?" the man asked. Jake nodded, cautious. "Yeah, who's asking?" The man handed him an embossed envelope. "You're invited." Jake opened it. Inside was a single white card, elegantly printed. "You changed someone's life. Now it's your turn." Before he could speak, the back door of the Rolls-Royce opened. Emily stepped out, but she wasn't the same woman from the day before. Her hair was perfectly styled. Her coat was designer. She carried herself like someone who belonged in boardrooms, not broken-down sedans. Jake froze. "Emily?" She smiled warmly. "It's actually Amelia Whitmore. My family owns Whitmore Holdings." Jake's jaw dropped. Everyone had heard the name. One of the wealthiest families in the country. Tech, real estate, fashion, you name it. "I didn't lie," she said gently. "I told you I had no money. I left home with nothing but my name. I wanted to find someone real, someone kind, without..." a price tag. And I found you. Jake struggled to find words. You set this up? She nodded. I needed to see how you'd act when there was nothing to gain. Now I want to invest in your future. One of the men stepped forward and handed Jake a folder. Inside were documents for a full renovation of his shop, top-tier tools, a financial advisor, and a business grant worth more than Jake had made in 10 years. His hands trembled. Why me? Amelia stepped closer. Because you didn't just fix my car. You restored my faith in people, and I think the world needs more of you. Jake looked at the fleet of cars, then back at the woman he had helped for nothing. For the first time in years, hope didn't feel like a distant dream. It was real, parked right in front of him. That night, he barely slept. The folder sat on his kitchen table like a golden ticket, too unreal to touch, too life-changing to ignore. He kept opening it, expecting the numbers to vanish, the ink to fade, or the fine print to scream, just kidding. But it was all real, every last word. The next morning, as the sun rose, Jake returned to his shop. He expected quiet. Instead, his lot buzzed with activity. Construction crews, trucks, architects, designers. Professionals moved like a hive, unloading blueprints, measuring walls, inspecting the ancient lift system he'd patched for years. A tall woman in a hard hat approached. You must be Mr. Carson. We're here to begin the transformation. Transformation? She smiled. Miss Whitmore is funding a complete rebuild. State-of-the-art equipment, full solar roofing, eco-friendly insulation, digital systems, customer lounge, everything. Oh, and she insisted the vintage Carson's Auto sign stays. Said it's part of the soul. Jake's voice cracked. This is really happening, she nodded. You earned it. By noon, Amelia arrived again, this time in a modest electric car, dressed casually, blending into the scene. She walked beside Jake as the old garage was stripped down. I want this place to thrive, she said. But more than that, I want you to lead something bigger. Bigger than fixing cars, a community initiative, free repairs for struggling families, a mentorship program for teens, workshops to teach real skills, real tools. I'll fund it. You'll be the face of it. Jake swallowed hard. Why me? She looked him in the eyes. Because when no one was watching, you made the right choice. That matters more than a resume or a suit. Jake turned to look at the shop. His father's before him, now half dismantled. It held memories, sweat, and stories in every dented wall. And now, it was being reborn, not just as a business, but as a beacon. The town had started to notice. Locals were already stopping by, wide-eyed. Rumors flew, some true, most wildly exaggerated. But one thing was certain. Jake Carson was no longer just the quiet mechanic with grease-stained hands. He was becoming something else, something bigger than he'd ever imagined. Within a week, Jake's once-forgotten corner of town transformed into a spectacle. People drove in from neighboring counties to see the rising steel frame and sleek glass panels of what was quickly becoming the most advanced auto facility in the region. But it wasn't just about the building. Something deeper was shifting. The day the sign went up, Carson Auto and Community Garage, Jake stood beside it with trembling hands. Beneath the main logo, smaller words were etched in clean silver script. Powered by kindness. Open to all. Jake had insisted on it. Every day brought new faces. Some were wealthy, curious about Amelia's mysterious project. Others were desperate, clutching repair bills they couldn't afford. Jake never turned anyone away. He offered free diagnostics, gave honest advice, and always made time for those who just needed to talk. One afternoon, a teenage boy named Mateo showed up, shoelaces untied, shoulders slumped. His mother's car had broken down a few blocks away. She was working 2 jobs, and the transmission was failing. Jake sent a tow truck, free of charge. The next morning, Mateo returned alone and asked, "Can I learn what you do?" Jake handed him a pair of gloves. "Let's start with how to change oil." Word spread fast. More teens followed. Jake built a workbench just for them, teaching not just how to use a wrench, but how to take pride in the work of their hands. Some had been skipping school, some had never known a father figure. But in Jake's garage, they found both guidance and dignity. Amelia watched quietly from the sidelines. She visited often, always blending in, always refusing credit. When asked why she chose Jake, she would only say, "Because he chose people." One night, Jake closed the shop late. He stood by the new sign, now softly glowing under LED lights. Behind him, the mentorship workshop buzzed with laughter and clanging tools. He looked up at the stars, then down at his own calloused hands. So much had changed, but the core of who he was, that never had. What began as a small act of kindness had become a movement. But something even bigger was still coming. Jake could feel it. He just didn't know how close it already was. 2 months later, Jake stood on stage at a charity gala he never imagined attending, let alone headlining. He wore a simple black suit, slightly uncomfortable in it but standing. Tall, spotlights beamed down, cameras flashed, hundreds of people, executives, celebrities, local heroes, filled the grand ballroom, all waiting to hear the story of the mechanic who gave away a free repair and ended up changing a town. Jake cleared his throat. "I'm not a speaker," he began, voice steady. "I fix engines. I used to think that was all I was good for, until someone came to me, broke down in more ways than one, and I just did what felt right." He paused, searching the crowd until he saw her, Amelia, standing off to the side, hands clasped, eyes locked on his. She didn't tell me who she was, didn't offer promises or handshakes or deals, just asked for help, and I gave it. Not because I thought it would come back to me, but because I remembered what it felt like to be in her shoes. He looked down for a moment, then back up. What happened after that was never the goal, the money, the shop, the press. The real reward was what I saw in that boy Mateo and the others who showed up, not just to learn mechanics, but to believe in themselves again. Thunderous applause rose as he stepped back. Amelia joined him on stage, holding a sleek envelope. She turned to him with a quiet smile. "You deserve the world, Jake. And now you're going to help build one." She handed him the envelope. Inside was the deed to a sprawling facility outside town, 10 acres, a learning center, a shelter, a training ground for those the world had forgotten. It was already in motion. Jake would be at the helm. That night, Jake didn't sleep. He sat beneath the stars, holding the deed, listening to the night sounds of the town he once thought would swallow him whole. Everything had changed, not because of luck, but because of one decision: to help without expecting anything in return. His shop had become a symbol, his hands had become hope, and his heart, steady, humble, unshakable, had become the beating center of something much greater than himself. Kindness had not only come full circle, it had built a legacy,